in doing so, that's what opened me up to having, to start feeling worthy and to start understanding that maybe I can do this on my own. Maybe I can start my own business
Mm.
because you start to realize you're more than you've always told yourself you were, or you're more
Yeah.
than what other people made you feel you were. And so for me, it's not something to fear. It's an opportunity to become so much more and so much more authentic than you've ever been.
Welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm your host, Sandy Davis. Elevate Within is for the high achieving women in the messy middle, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. This is a space for honest conversations about reinvention, resilience, healing, leadership, and what it really takes to rebuild from the inside out. Each week, I'm joined by my co-host, Claudia Cuevas, licensed marriage and family therapist, as we explore the stories, lessons, and emotional realities behind transformation. Because reinvention isn't just about changing our circumstances. It's about understanding yourself. It's about healing. It's about letting go of who you thought you had to be so you can become who you were always meant to be. Whether you're navigating burnout, grief, identity shifts, career transitions, entrepreneurships, caregiving, or simply asking yourself, what's next? You are not alone. So take a breath, pull up a chair, and join us at the table. This is Elevate Within. Hello, and welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm your host, Sandy Davis. And as we begin the architecture of reinvention, the Art of Unbecoming series, I'm so grateful to have someone joining me in these conversations. My co-host, Claudia Cuevas. Claudia is a licensed marriage and family therapist, entrepreneur, and someone who brings not only her professional experience supporting others through healing and transformation, but also her own lived experience navigating reinvention. Claudia, welcome back to Elevate Within. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so excited to begin this series. I can't wait to hear all the guests and for us to dig in deep. So let's
Yes,
do
and
it.
we have a great guest today. Today, I want to introduce you to Jenny Catalano. Jenny is the founder and CEO of Impact Events Collective, a purpose-driven business helping organizations strengthen culture, connection, and community impact through meaningful experiences that brings employees together while supporting local nonprofits. Before launching Impact Events Collective, Jenny spent more than 20 years in executive leadership roles, spanning operations, finance, HR, and serving as a COO. Through her own journey of healing and self-discovery, she began reevaluating what connection, purpose, and belonging truly means, not only inside organizations, but within ourselves. And like so many women in the messy middle, there is also the story behind the success, the seasons of transition, rebuilding, and rediscovering who we are when the roles we've carried for years begin to shift. And that's the conversation we're having today. Jenny, welcome to Elevate Within.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your journey and the experiences that shaped the woman that you are today.
Okay, so I started many years ago in finance and worked my way up through 20, almost 30 years now in corporate roles, both small and mid-sized companies. The work I did, I enjoyed my jobs. I enjoyed the progression. Once I moved on through finance, I ended up in some operational roles that really moved me, that I found were sort of my sweet spot. And then I moved up into some COO roles. I really enjoyed the work I did, but one thing I saw that repeated through many of the companies I worked for was a company culture that was hyped up and talked about as something people forward and people first, but it didn't
We hear
feel
that a
that
lot.
way. Yeah. But once you're on the inside, it's not quite what it seems. And that was something that the further I got in my career became more and more important to me because I saw the negative results of that. I saw how it negatively impacted businesses and how the leadership teams didn't always notice the direct impact between a strong culture and growing your business and business success. And I think that's overlooked often in a lot of businesses.
Yep.
So my wheels started to turn and I started to think, maybe this is a time in my life. I was over 50 and feeling like, I think it's time for me to do something that really is meaningful to me, that has a really genuine impact for me on my soul, that I
Yep.
felt deeply, really strongly about, rather than living out someone else's dream and watching it evolve in a way that I felt wasn't as strong for the business as it could be and wasn't caring for those people that work so hard for these companies.
Yep.
And so I wanted to address that. And that's how Impact Events Collective evolved. And I started this business with the idea that I can do two things at once, where I can serve the corporate side and help them really embed that culture into who they are and build a company that your employees can be proud of and something that they genuinely feel every day. And at the same time, serve nonprofits in the communities of those companies, which a lot of companies are doing. But my intent is to do it in very meaningful, hands-on, engaging ways that bring the employees together.
That sounds healthy and a non-toxic. It is what is so needed. And you started this business how long ago?
Not very. I just launched this past January, so I've been working hard to get.
Congrats.
Thank you. I've been working really hard to get things up and running and partner with the nonprofits, and it's been a really fun journey. And I've met so many amazing people.
Great, great. Was there a particular season in your life where you felt like your own messy middle was getting in the way of launching this new business after stepping out of corporate America?
There've been It's been, some up and downs, of course. A lot of it's been great. And like I said, I've met tons of new people. I'm in now the stage of really trying to build up my client base and get some visibility out there and really make people understand exactly what I'm doing and why it's so important. And that's been the biggest challenge for me, is to make sure that I get in front of the right people, make sure my message is heard and understood. But I'm driven and I feel so deeply how important this is that I'm not ready to give up. It's really important to me to make this happen.
And do not give up.
And no.
So, for example, who are the right people?
I'm focusing primarily on small to medium sized businesses, a lot of who are interested in culture and in elevating their culture and maybe are already engaged philanthropically, but maybe they don't have the staff or the bandwidth to plan these sort of gatherings, or they don't know really where to start or how to go about it. And I'm here to take that off of their plates. At the same time, nonprofits don't have, they don't always have that access to that kind of staff to roll out these kind of events. And I also take it off of their plate as well, so that everybody just has to show up. I'll plan it all, they show up. So it's not necessarily for companies that don't care about culture and need it implemented. It's not a lack of caring or intent. I think it's sometimes just not understanding or having time really to implement it properly and to really know how to embed it in who they are.
Right. Elevate Within is really about the space between who we were and who we're becoming. Looking back, was there a moment where you realized an older version of yourself no longer fit?
Yes, probably about 5 years ago. I was a COO of a smaller company, although we managed a very large conglomerate of people. And it was a role that I loved, but I found myself working so hard every day, putting so many hours in, so intent on being what I thought was successful. And I felt myself kind of slipping away. At the same time, I was personally struggling with some trauma that had been rising, and that was coming into play, and it was affecting the way I viewed everything. And I knew that something had to give. I knew that I was in a space that wasn't healthy for me anymore, and I knew that I needed to work on myself and find honestly, it got to where I wasn't sure who I was anymore or what success looked like and what it meant. And what I thought I'd achieved that I thought was successful wasn't feeling the way you'd think it would feel. It
Right.
wasn't feeling that rewarding. In fact, I was in probably one of the lowest points of my life. And I carried through with that for years while working on myself. But then I reached the point where I knew it was time for me to do something for me that really mattered.
If you're comfortable with it, could you elaborate a bit on what that looked like or what you were going through? That was like your deepest point.
Yeah, like I said, I had experienced a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of which I was very well aware of, although it took me many, many years to realize that it was trauma because as many of you know, we don't always see what we're living in as something wrong. We don't know it's wrong. We don't know that it's not normal or okay. And as I got older, I saw more and more of what was wrong with that scenario. But there was also a piece of what was happening in my childhood that hadn't surfaced for me. And it was starting to come up. And that just kind of rocked me to my core. And that coupled with what I'd already experienced, I was in a lot of therapy, a lot of talk therapy, which was helpful because it helped me piece the puzzle together. It helped me understand some of my behaviors and why I responded to things the way I did and why things affected me the way that they did and why I felt so driven and so intent on achieving perfection. And so it kind of pieced all of that together for me. But then I kind of hit a point where there wasn't a lot more to do in talk therapy. I wasn't progressing, but I felt like I wasn't healed. I still felt like there was something missing. And I realized that for all the things I pieced together intellectually, I hadn't touched the emotional side of what was affecting me. And that was really hard for me to do because when I was young, I learned to shut that off. I learned how to not feel because it was too much, too painful, more than a child could handle.
Hmm.
And so I I just kept that shut down and shut off for so many years that I found that I couldn't reach it. I couldn't get down there to connect with those emotions to try and heal them. And that's when I knew there was more healing that needed to take place. And I'm still in the process of that. But this is the hardest part for me for sure. But I'm on a great path. I feel like it's it's necessary, but it also I feel myself healing. I feel myself turning a corner. I feel more in touch with who I am, but it's taken a lot of work.
It's interesting, and I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because we've seen for high level, high achieving leadership women, we were talking in the last podcast that 6 out of 10 women at like CEO level or COO level will report high levels of burnout. And so I'm wondering, because we know that it doesn't happen psychologically, we have to perform in a very intellectual level in order to get to where we need to get to. I'm
Hmm.
wondering if there was times that you were able to notice like body stuff, right? So if you had a lot of chronic illness or a lot of back pain, like how did that manifest? We typically don't see depression, anxiety till later.
Right.
I
Well,
wonder how
Yeah.
that started for you.
yeah, I had anxiety that I can now look back and know that I started having around 12 years old.
Right.
And no one knew what was wrong with me. I thought there was something very wrong with me, but they didn't no one talked about it at the time and it wasn't treated or taken very seriously and I just went thinking all the time that there was something wrong with me and I'd have these attacks and it would take me a day or two to recoup from them and then I'd just move on and think maybe I had the stomach flu or something. And I had that from early on. When I started in this later phase where I mentioned where I started feeling things more, that's when depression settled in. I had never really dealt with the depression side, but that hit me hard. And that's something I still wrestle with to some degree, but it's better. It's much better. Um, but I also, like you said, I started having intense back pain. I had joint pain. I had all these issues that I saw the doctor for, and basically they'd kind of shrug their shoulders and send me on my way because they couldn't find anything wrong. My
Mhm.
tests were fine. They didn't know, what was wrong, and so there wasn't much they could do for me.
Mhm.
And so, yes, it definitely manifested itself physically, and the symptoms just kind of piled on each other over the years.
What were some of the coping skills that you kind of used in order to move? Because again, you moved forward, right? It
Hmm.
happened. You would have the back pain. You'd take the anti-inflammatory or whatever you had to do, and then you got to go to work. So,
Right.
what were your some good and bad, right? What were some of your coping skills that you
Yeah,
used?
I think throwing myself into work was a coping skill because it was a distraction for me. It
Hmm.
was easier for me to just dive in and be all full on in my work because then I wasn't focusing on what was happening with me, and it was easy to just not think about it so much. So I do think that was one. I'm a conflict avoider for sure. And so even I started noticing the effects in my home life too. I was throwing myself into work, but my home life was suffering, because I wasn't giving them the attention they deserved. And I think there was some association there between home is where in my own space, and that's where I'm having a harder time dealing
Hmm.
with things. I also learned over time that I'm I'm good at working really hard to maintain the relationships that aren't great for me,
Hmm.
and while simultaneously sabotaging the best ones in my life.
Okay.
And it took me to get to a point in my second marriage where I started seeing the same patterns and saying, why do I keep doing this? What is happening? Fortunately, had the wherewithal to notice that and get help for that before my second marriage ended as well. Another coping mechanism, I'm very withdrawn. I shut down. I don't go out anymore. I don't wanna be around people. I find that, I'm very introverted, and I find when I'm in a bad space, it's very hard for me to connect with other people. So that was something I did. And one that's really hard for me to say right now, um, skin picking is something I've done since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard I've fought it, it's still an issue to this day. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been something that I have the hardest time with, and that not just mentally accepting it, but the fact that I haven't been able to shake that is
Hmm.
really challenging for me.
It's very interesting when some of our coping skills that, can now be seen as a negative have been with us in order for us to, we're in survival mode.
Yeah,
And so it
and I
is
know
the
that
thing.
now.
Yeah. So anytime you feel any type of stress, as much as you're able to kind of like assess the other things that you do and be like, I'm not going to go and, have a bad relationship, or you're able to control, it's the little things that are soothing, right? Because we
Mhm.
learned these things when we were
Yes.
really young.
Mhm.
And so anything that feels stressful, it's our go-to. It's also easier to hide. It's easier to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
right? People will
Yeah.
pick or, chew on the side of their mouth. There's hair missing because we'll pull our hair in the
Mhm.
back, or, and those kind of things. And so it's so innate in us because that was you probably started very young doing
Very young.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So mine was food.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
I got a bottle shoved in my mouth since I was very young. And so that is just a it's such a hard thing to shake, but it's so necessary because it's a reminder. It's actually a reminder like, oh, I'm going to a stressful situation, or there's something that my brain is perceiving as danger. And
Mhm.
it doesn't know our brain doesn't know how to distinguish between it's just stress and I'm a little excited or I'm a little anxious with like there's a dinosaur coming after you.
Mm.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think some of the healthier ones I had, when I was younger, I developed an avid love of reading. I read books so much. I went through stacks of them in no time and had to go back to the library to get more. And I'm still a very avid reader. And I find that when I need just time alone, I want to read. And so that
Mhm.
was something. And music. Music is the other thing that's keeps still today keeps me grounded. It's a huge part of my life. And I can get in the car, crank up the tunes, and feel better about anything.
Same,
So, yeah.
same.
Can you share with us today what are some of like your I'm a proponent of self-care. What do
Mhm.
you kind of do for yourself for self-care?
Yeah, I've worked really hard in the last year to work on myself, to connect with myself, and I've found meditation to be hugely helpful for me. It takes a lot of work, and there are days where I do it and I feel like I didn't get anything out of it, or it just wasn't a day where I could really sink in. But for the days that do, it's brought me to such a calmer place. I find that I'm not overreacting to situations that would normally put me over the edge, things that I'm able to rationalize situations and say, "Okay, well, let's work through this and then we'll move on." Or if, you know, I've been able to get rid of the what if scenarios like that make you crazy and scare
Mhm.
you, that drive our fear. Um, I
The
don't
voice in
sit
your
and
head.
yeah, I
Mhm.
don't sit and
Yeah.
ruminate on the what if so much. I'm much better about being in the here and now. I know that if a situation comes up, I'll deal with it. We'll work through it and we'll move on because there's no situation that I can, find in my history that I haven't been able to move forward and reconcile in some way and
Hmm.
work through. My whole demeanor is calmer and I definitely feel more connected with who I am, where for many years I've felt like I had no idea who I was and I was so disconnected from myself. And that's a really hard place to exist in.
Mhm. It's very successful. You're able to be very successful, right? Like it's the thing
Yeah.
that got you to the place that you needed to be in order to be successful. I really love that you're practicing meditation. I think that for high achieving women is one of the hardest practices
Hmm.
because there is this need to connect to your body and your mind at the same
Hmm.
time, and so we're so good at
Yeah.
compartmentalizing and kind of shutting down the body in order to move on, and
Hmm.
so in order to kind of connect back to your body, you're then having to deal with the things that were happening to us in order to not feel what we're feeling, right? And so it's
Right.
a really scary place to be, to, scan your body and be like, "Ooh, I don't wanna touch that area," like, that it brings us back to childhood stuff, right?
Right. Well, if I take it back a little bit further, it actually started where started doing somatic therapy after I realized that talk therapy wasn't helping me, and we worked on something. I want to say it's called transformational touch,
Okay.
and that was a really different cool experience, and it's learning to recognize signs and things in your body, and I did that for quite a while and that helped a lot, but that also helped prepare me and help me be successful with meditation.
Okay.
I've really been on a spiritual journey. I
Mhm.
journal, I practice gratitude. um
Yes.
I've worked with energy healers that have done amazing things for me. So what I might have said back in the day was woo woo is
Uh-huh.
something I've really embraced now
Mhm,
because
mhm.
it's proven to be really valuable for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reinvention sounds beautiful when we talk about it now, but living through it can feel messy, lonely, uncertain, and deeply uncomfortable. What do you think people misunderstand most about the reinvention process?
I don't think it's as scary as we make it out to be, which is probably true for anything really that we catastrophize in our minds. For me, it's been a relief almost because I wanted to become who I was. I wanted to discover what I'd missed all this time, what I'd been hiding or covering up or just didn't
Mhm,
even know was there, the part of me that I didn't know. And the process is hard. Some of it's scary. Like you said, there are things that come up that are extremely difficult to deal with. But for me, it was working towards an end goal that I knew was a place I wanted to get to. It was, it was working towards comfort and loving myself. And so for me, there was really no other choice. It was something I needed to do for myself.
Hmm.
But in doing so, that's what opened me up to having to start feeling worthy and to start understanding that maybe I can do this on my own. Maybe I can start my own business
Mm.
because you start to realize you're more than you've always told yourself you were, or you're more
Yeah.
than what other people made you feel you were. And so for me, it's not something to fear, it's an opportunity to become so much more and so much more authentic than you've ever been.
Hmm. Yeah. Looking back now, do you feel like you became someone entirely different through this process or more fully yourself?
That's an interesting question because sometimes I look back at who I was and think, what parts of me then were true to who I am and what wasn't. And um there are some parts that have stayed for sure. I think I'm a very empathetic person and somewhat intuitive to the needs of others. Um and I always wanted to help everyone, and that's still there. I think I approach it maybe a little bit differently now because I just have that deeper understanding of there's a difference between doing this because I'm trying to fill a void versus I genuinely just want to help people. And it's not
Yeah.
about fixing myself, it's just about being who I am. So I think characteristics like that were there, but they weren't fully developed outside of the trauma lens, if that makes
Mhm.
sense,
Hmm.
that I've worked on a lot. So it's been a journey to figure all of that out.
Because I think you hit it in the nail, which is it is not about not being who you were. It's just your perspective at it. It's the evolution of integration.
Uh-huh.
You're all of it. You weren't not that person. You were all of it. It's just the perspective and the purpose that we give to it
Right.
of the evolution so that we can better utilize it for the actual good and whatever we want. So I love that you said that because I think
Yeah.
that is exactly what it is. It's not about I'm not that person or I'm faking who I was. It's really the integration now and taking ownership of who that person is.
Right. And I'm doing a lot of work too on kind of undoing your thought patterns of the past where you would immediately, you know, have negative self-talk or you believe you're not
Right.
capable of things. Whereas I did that. You do it naturally because you do it so often. But as I've
Hmm.
been focusing on it, I find that when those thoughts come up, I catch them. I
Good.
stop myself and recognize that I'm
Right.
heading in that direction, stop, take a beat, and reframe
Mhm.
so that I can look at it through the new lens I've been working on and know that those things aren't real. They're not true. They're what I believed because it's something somebody else told me or I
Mhm.
was, made to believe. And so that's helped me a lot. So I can just pause in that moment, reframe, and just view the situation differently.
Yeah.
I always love ending Elevate Within episodes with something reflective. So when you think about the woman listening right now, the woman in the messy middle, what would you want to leave her with today?
It's worth how hard it is. It's worth the rough journey to get to the other side. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to dig up all the ugly things. You can heal without doing that necessarily. But the place you get to on the other side, like I feel like I was never able to experience as much as I couldn't connect with my emotions negatively, you also have trouble connecting with joy and the positive, things that we should experience. And I could never fully experience that either. And I'm starting to feel for the first time, this is what it feels like to be in a relaxed space, to not always be, you know, waiting for something to happen or being on guard. This is what it feels like to be able to be present with my family and enjoy the moments with them that I struggled with before. It's so worth working on you and taking that time because it takes you to a place that's just it's a whole new discovery and it's a
Mhm.
whole new world that that you can it's never too late to do that. You can enjoy your life at any point, and it's worth doing the work to get there.
Amen to that. Let folks know where they can find you and connect with you.
Yes, my website is impacteventscollective.com. I'm on LinkedIn under Jenny Catalano. I'd love for you to check out either of those places and see what I'm doing. Look at some of my writing. I've written some articles on there that might be worth looking at. Yeah, and I'm happy to hear from anyone that would love to connect, whether it be business or, to collaborate or just talk to somebody who's been through it, but is finding herself on the other side.
Thank you for sharing that and extending yourself for folks who just want to connect and talk, because that's what I'm building with this series and understanding for women collectively. Not one person knows all of the answers,
Hmm.
but it's actually networking, it's connecting, it's supporting, it's saying, like, hey, you know, we've all been in the messy middle. Here's how I got out of it. Here was my trauma, your trauma. If you're spiraling, connect with me.
Yes,
Talk to me.
and that's why I think the work you're doing is so important. We can be successful women, but we can do both. We can be successful, but we're still complex women who have histories and who have had
Yeah.
to work hard and work through a lot, but we can be both. And sometimes we have to show up as just one of those people. And I think it's
Hmm.
important to recognize that there's more to us than that. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate you addressing that.
Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story, your wisdom, and your heart with the community.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we truly appreciate you being part of the Architect of Reinvention series. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
If you want to learn more about Jenny's work or connect with her directly, you'll find her information and links in the show notes. And Claudia, you want to give out your website or where folks can reach out to you?
You can look me up on my website, claudiacuevas.com. And I'm on Psychology Today if there's something you also want to come and connect in California. So
And you'll find all those links in the show notes. Until next time, keep elevating personally, professionally, and from within. And before I go, if no one told you that they loved you today, I love you. So Jenny, I love you. Claudia,
Thank
I
you.
love you.
I love you right back. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Claudia.
All right.
you're
Thank you.
amazing.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
If this conversation resonated with you, you're not alone. That's exactly why this space exists. Elevate Within is for the high-achieving women in the messy middle, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The architecture of reinvention is an invitation to pause, to reflect, to heal, and to begin the process of unbecoming everything you were told you had to be, so you could become who you were always meant to be. Be sure to join us each Friday for our Architecture of Reinvention Roundtable discussions, where we continue these conversations and explore the deeper lessons, insights, tools, and reflections that emerge from each story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. For Apple Podcast listeners, I would be grateful if you leave a rating or review. It helps reach more women who may need this conversation right now. And if you'd like to go deeper, join us on Substack at Elevate Within. There, you'll find weekly essays and honest conversations about burnout, grief, reinvention, resilience, healing, and the messy middle. Free subscribers receive full access to all public content, while paid subscribers receive bonus essays, early access to upcoming series, behind-the-scenes recording, and opportunities to engage directly with the community. If you know of a woman who needs to hear this conversation today, please share it with her. You can find me on LinkedIn under Sandra Davis, on Substack at Elevate Within, and if you're in need of fractional COO work or would like to book a discovery call on how I can help, you can reach out to me at elevateopsadvisory.com. You'll find all those links in the show notes. Until next time, keep elevating personally, professionally, and from within.